from MLB Network and from Fox Sports and Fox Sports 1. Baseball writer Jon Morosi. Good to see you, sir. Baseball analyst, information man.
Yeah.
Because, there's some places that you can write for and others that are not, but we'll just leave that as it is. And with the trade deadline coming up on Monday, you're kind enough to join us here in studio as part of our Honda Insider Report. So Jon Morosi being here is brought to you by the 2017 Honda Accord. It's stylish, spacious, and comfortable. And right now you can get a great deal at the Honda Celebration Sales event, but you have to hurry because like baseball, trade deadline, it's going to be all over soon. So good to see you, sir, right here on our show. Did the Dodgers make a deal, do you think, over the weekend? They're going to.
I have no doubt, Rich, that they'll get one of those ace pitchers available right now. They have, of course, the concern about Kershaw, now back on the DL with a back strain. Brandon McCarthy on the DL as well. Mm-hmm. You don't have a team with this much magic, which we've seen from the Dodgers time and time again late in games. They need that one more starting pitcher, whether it's Darvish, Sonny Gray, maybe Verlander. I'm confident one of those guys will be in Dodger blue by Monday.
So Darvish is the one, though, that appears to have the most heat to the Dodgers, right?
He does, because the Rangers now know, Rich, they're out of it. They've really had a tough go of things lately. So Darvish, a free agent after the year is over. They want to see if they can find a way to get some value for him now. And really, a lot of teams, Rich, are more into the multi-year thought process.
What do you mean?
But they want the controllable pitcher, like a Sonny Gray, like a Verlander, Irvin Santana, perhaps. Very few teams are all in the way the Dodgers are right now, because of course they have not won the World Series since 1988. They've now won the division 4 straight years. They've got Kershaw, who, when he's healthy, is the best pitcher on the planet. But they don't even have a World Series appearance yet to show for it during Kershaw's time. So they want to find a way to maximize what they've got right now, that magic we talked about, and that's why I think they're fully in there if Darvish is the guy for them.
So what are the chances that Verlander goes anywhere, not just the Dodgers, but anywhere? Because you meant he's controllable.
He is.
But, I mean, for Fort Knox type controllable.
And big-time dollars.
Like damn near $60 million.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Still due on his contract between now and the end of the deal at the conclusion of the 2019 season. So the teams that could actually afford to handle that type of contract, the Dodgers and the Cubs. The Cubs, I hear more than the Dodgers. I think the Cubs are the team that's been a bit more active on Verlander. They, of course, already got Jose Quintana in that rare Chicago trade, but they do have interest in Verlander, the Cubs do. And the Dodgers, listen, they know where they're at right now. They know that they have a World Series caliber team, but there's just too much uncertainty with their rotation. They've had to go with Kershaw on short rest in the first round, Rich, 4 consecutive years. And going on short rest now is different than it was 20 years ago because the at-bats are different. I think the overall construct of the game, it's just hard. It's harder to get through an inning, harder to get through an at-bat now than it was 25 years ago because that's that many more pitches. So you have to find a way, I think, to have a little bit more depth in your rotation. That's why I think the Dodgers right now are so focused on upgrading that rotation.
MLB Networks and Fox Sports, Jon Morosi here on the Rich Eisen Show studio. So who's a buyer that you think might not be considered one right now that's sitting there?
The sneaky buyer.
The sneaky buyer that's sitting there in the wild card position, which is beginning to get a little bit more separated. It was about 3 weeks ago where 9 teams were within about 3 games of the American League wild card lead. Who do you think is a sneaky buyer out there?
A couple teams. The Seattle Mariners, Rich, who right now have the longest postseason drought of any team in the majors. Back to 2001. That magical year, 116 wins.
Right.
They have not been in the playoffs since then. So they have the longest drought in baseball. They want to make some moves, I think, with their pitching. Now, today they got Erasmo Ramirez. They're probably setting their sights a bit higher in terms of maybe even a Sonny Gray. It's a rare in-division deal if it happens. But the Mariners and Jerry Dipoto, he's made the most trades of any GM in the game since he took that job there in Seattle. Not afraid to make a move. They want to upgrade their pitching. Also the Braves. The Braves are not really a buyer. We know how good the Nationals are in that very same division. But the Braves, in terms of buying for this year, they actually want to buy for the long term. So perhaps they'll get a Sonny Gray as well. That's one team we've heard on being involved there is Atlanta.
And Atlanta's 8.5 out of the National League wild card right now, led by both Arizona and Colorado. The team that's closest to them are the Brewers, who seem to have a slipping control of that National League Central. So the Cubs, do you think they're on quality footing now?
They are.
They're all relaxed now. Perhaps the monkey's off their back.
And I think, Rich, you think about the overall effect of a trade. Yes, it affects your team on the field, but the Cubs, we're seeing they got, I think, a psychological benefit from that. Coming out of the All-Star break, they had been listless, I think, in the first half. Just hadn't played that well. Quintana walks in. All of a sudden, there's that jolt of energy they now know they're going for it again. And I think that really has had a tangible effect on them. Whereas the Brewers now, the All-Star break happened at the worst possible time. They had been playing so well, so much momentum. All of a sudden, the All-Star break happens, and it's almost as if they finally saw how far they were climbing up and looked down. Oh my goodness, we're pretty high right now, and now they've kind of scuffled out of the break. So I think that they're still involved. Certainly, they'd like to add Gray as well, but I think the Brewers maybe they've lost a bit of the magic they had there in the first half.
Jon Morosi here in the Honda Insider Report. You're kind enough to have your phone out in front of you.
Yeah,
too.
so just in case, Rich, in case there's any kind of there's a bit of a buzz, but no trade yet. I can report
going on.
Nothing has happened in the last 7 minutes.
Okay, very good. But I appreciate your due diligence and your vigilance on that front. David Price on the disabled list,
Yes.
right? That is as of today. The Red Sox are in front of the Yankees by a half game right now. What moves are the Red Sox planning to make this weekend?
Well, before, like 48 hours ago, Rich, I was told about bullpen. They were looking maybe to add one more bullpen piece to help that late inning situation.
Well, Zach Britton couldn't be going in that direction. Well, the Orioles wouldn't trade him in division, would they?
In division deal. Of course, it was funny because in division, Andrew Miller back in 2014 went from Boston to Baltimore. So maybe in reverse, but I would still say more likely Britton goes to Houston or LA.
Well, at the time, Miller was just one of those young arms up and coming. I mean, Britton is as great as a reliever we have seen as in recent days.
Right.
I mean, he's shut down reliever. So let's while we're on that subject, then I digress. Where does Britton go? Because we do expect this is his last weekend with the Orioles, correct?
I agree. Of course, the Scott Boras client probably going to hit the free agent market after 18 and have some untold millions there. So I think that the Orioles not confident in their chances to sign him before that happens. So I think teams like the Dodgers, the Astros, both of them want to really upgrade their bullpen, and they're both in win now mode. The Dodgers not since '88. The Astros never have won the World Series. So there's a big investment from both those teams to upgrade that bullpen. But it's interesting because we saw last year, the Aroldis Chapman deal, of course, when he went to Chicago, the Yankees got Gleyber Torres, who's the number 3 prospect in the game, for just a half-season rental. Britton is for a full season plus half a season. So there's, I think, maybe even more value on Britton. So the asking price is very high, understandably. So I do think, again, I think he'll go Dodgers, Astros, the best fits there. But the Red Sox, as you mentioned, Rich, they now have this news about David Price, which is alarming. Second time this year he's been in the DL for an elbow situation. He had been pitching better. There had been a lot of drama there, but he's pitched better. ERA under 3 at the last 6 or 7 starts. So encouraging signs there up until the last 24 hours. So now all of a sudden Boston may be in that mix for a rental starter like Yu Darvish as well.
Well, and I threw this out too, Brockman. I'm going to ask him. I don't care.
Okay.
Why wouldn't the Red Sox knock on the Tigers' door and say, all right, if you're selling, well, what about Miguel Cabrera? And stick him at first base and put him in the middle of that lineup. They need a stick, too. It's right. I mean, you're going to go against Houston and their pitchers. That's a concern. But they're putting up runs. Right. You know they're going to put up runs.
Right.
So what do you think? Is there any there at all on that front?
It's a great question because, of course, Dave Dombrowski knows him well, knows Miguel well. He was the GM in Florida when he was signed as an amateur, a 16-year-old out of Venezuela, and of course he traded for him in Detroit. I think that Miguel's offensive numbers this year have regressed enough that there's a lot of concern about what the coming years will look like. I
still can't believe that.
Well, it's
Brockman, you said the same thing.
To me, it's a legitimate concern right now with Miguel Cabrera. But I would say this: there are enough corner bats out there, at least to sort of fill in for the next half season. Yonder Alonso in Oakland. Of course, Lucas Duda just got traded to Tampa Bay. There are enough bats of that caliber, even a Brandon Belt in San Francisco.
Is Bohr on the market?
He just got hurt, but I think apart from that, potentially in the month of August because of the waiver trade. But yes, I would say had he not been injured, he would have been a prime candidate right now. Of course, the franchise being sold in Miami, which is another consideration here. But I just think Rich Miguel, and I watch him a lot living in Michigan. There's a concern there about what the future is going to be. That deal is through 2023. He is going to get paid beyond his 40th birthday. In some respects, this contract could become, to the Tigers, even more onerous than what Albert's deal has been with the Angels. I think it has that potential right now. So I think a lot of teams are staying away from it. Verlander maybe is a possibility there because, of course, Dave Dombrowski knows him well from Detroit days as well with the latest David Price injury. But I think Cabrera, Rich, stays in Detroit.
And what about the Angels? I mean, here they are. They're 5.5 back. They've got the best player in the American League, bar none, if not Major League Baseball, and Mike Trout. And it just seems year in and year out, there's just don't get enough other pieces around. And Pujols, his contract Do you think that this is a major problem for the Angels right now?
Rich,
as some are supposing?
They're a team, for me, that'll be very good next year. Because remember, this is the last year of Josh Hamilton's contract.
Oh, yeah.
And Hamilton's deal, actually, that was the even more so than Sandoval, who, of course, just got traded from or released by the Red Sox and signed with the Giants. Hamilton's contract is the largest amount of money eaten in a baseball contract in the history of the game. So they're still paying him this year more than $20 million.
More than Bonilla.
More, yes. Oh, yes. But and I'm glad you brought up Trout, though, because I love the game. Okay, I love baseball. It's my livelihood, but I'm still a fan of the game too. And as someone who wants to see baseball in this country thrive as much as it can, we as those who love baseball, we need Mike Trout in the playoffs. We need him to be a crossover star who if he walks down Broadway in New York City, is recognized as much as Tom Brady. That's not the case right now. Mike Trout has played in one playoff series. The Angels lost every game, and I think he was 1 for 15. The magic of Derek Jeter is that he was great from the moment that he basically stepped on a field, and he was on our television sets every single October. We saw his story every year.
Yes.
There are a lot of Americans who haven't really seen Mike Trout and invested in him at all because we haven't seen him in October over an extended period of time. That has to happen, Rich, for the good of the game sooner rather than later.
Let's take a break here with Jon Morosi, talk a little bit more about what we're expecting to see over the weekend. The Hall of Fame ceremonies coming up as well. And then Brockman, later on in this hour, there is some Kyrie Irving news as to what the Cavs might do with him. That's still to come here in hour number 3 on The Rich Eisen Show. All right, welcome back to the show. Jon Morosi sticking around here. So you saw the old spear tackle that I attempted?
I did. That was, first of all, it was one of the coolest things I've seen on TV in a while.
Okay.
Your quick aptitude in learning how to do it was impressive. And also, it did recall, to me at least, as I speak as an Italian,
yes,
the 2006 World Cup final. Zidane v. Materazzi, which there was no grab behind the tush in that case.
We did get a few tweets with that.
But yeah, that was
oh, really?
With that GIF. Yeah,
that was
really?
There you go. See, when I saw it, that was the first thing I thought of. Zidane against Materazzi. There you go. So this goes right side by side, Rich. Great moments in sports history. 06 World Cup final and the Rich Eisen Show this morning. How about that?
This is ridiculous.
It's graceful. I think Zidane.
Graceful, I don't know about.
Zidane is probably going to, he's probably watching the show over in Europe right now. He's going to call in and say, you did it better than me.
It's funny. Susie and I, my wife and I, were traveling in Italy about 3 days after that moment.
Oh, really?
And, my wife's fluent in Italian.
Wow.
So we were listening to the radio in our rental car, and we were listening, and I could pick up. I could pick up on words.
Yeah.
You heard the Italian shock jocks playing the French call of it, where they were like, pourquoi, Zidane, pourquoi? And they were laughing. They were cackling. The Italians were just having a great time. Pourquoi, pourquoi?
Yes,
they were laughing
yes.
that. Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. Odell Beckham has spoken to the media in the New York metropolitan area today based off of his comments that he said to Uninterrupted that he will be, in his mind, a goal, not only the highest paid wide receiver, but he would like to be the highest paid player in the National Football League. And you just know it's coming. The spinning of it in New York City is going to be that he's a distraction and a menace. I feel it coming. I have a problem with that. We'll get to that in a moment.
Might be on the back pages tomorrow. Maybe.
I mean, it depends on what Scaramucci thinks out there. Seriously, it's all over the place in New York right now. But at any rate, also there's some holdouts in the NFL with more and more training camps opening up today. We'll get to that in a moment. But we have Jon Morosi of MLB Network and also Fox Sports here 3 days before the trade deadline goes down in Major League Baseball. Let me ask you on a couple of larger issues in baseball here. Mm-hmm. Why will they not mic up the umps in baseball? What is the issue with telling the home plate umpire part of your job is to explain to the crowd what you are looking at under replay and then after replay announcing what you saw? Or in the case of what we saw, the abomination in Dodger Stadium 2 nights ago where there's a double switch got all
confusion, double switch.
18 minutes of everybody being in the dark. Why won't this happen?
It's a great question.
Why hasn't it happened
It's
yet?
a great question. I think it's something where, listen, the umpires have a union as well. And from my understanding, they are not on board with that idea.
Why?
I think that they are wary of the curtain being pulled back a bit too much, and of having to be front and center and explaining the calls. When in many cases, Rich, I guess I'll say this on their behalf, the decision about what happens with a particular call is made in New York.
So what?
By the replay umpire. So so in a certain sense, I understand it that it's not their call, not their decision to explain it. The decision's been made in New York.
But they're in the front line. They're the front. They're the face front.
And we see a football referee do it how many times a game?
Right. And now this year, it won't be their call either, but they're still going to at least say, after further review, the play stands as called, or the play is confirmed, which is a way to communicate to the fan that we didn't in the former, we didn't see enough to overturn it.
Correct.
In the latter, we saw enough to confirm it, or the play has been reversed. The runner didn't reach the bag in time, or whatever it is.
Right.
What's the problem with that? Because we're all wondering why didn't you overturn that? I just saw something. Instead, they just point to the base and go out, or point safe, and we go, come on.
Well, and then it's communicated eventually to the press box, and then over the airwaves for the people watching at home.
And that's a game of telephone, John.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's not properly communicated.
Very true. And plus, it's not always necessarily shown immediately in the ballpark on the scoreboard that conveys it. I'm totally with you where I would like that higher level of accountability. We see it in hockey as well, where they explain a goal being disallowed or allowed. And I actually think, and Michael Rosenberg, my friend, Michigan graduate as well, wrote a great story about Joe West recently in Sports Illustrated, where you get the sense, and from Joe's comments and from what Michael wrote, that we're losing a bit of that personality. I think for me, I kind of enjoy the umpires as part of the fabric of the game. Even this week, the issue between Jerry Davis and Beltre about could he stand where he was standing on the on-deck circle. That to me is funny.
But Jerry Davis didn't think it was funny. He ran him.
Right.
He ran him out.
I know. I as a fan and as someone I've been lucky to get to know umpires over the years as well. They're a great part of the game, and I would like to see them embrace that. And that means maybe being out in public a bit more when they make their calls and being more comfortable, I believe, on camera.
I'm not saying that these umpires should be like, Frank Drebin in The Naked Gun and make strike calls like they're doing, breakdancing, okay? I'm not saying do that.
Right.
That I don't need that. We don't need that. All I require is an explanation.
Right. That's fair.
Certainly if we're talking about time of games and how crucial it is.
No question.
If I'm wondering what's happening and an explanation can be given to me in a concise manner, why isn't it being delivered? I don't have a problem with that.
It's a very fair point, Rich. And I guess I'd point out one thing about the culture here of umpiring. Forever, they have always wanted to be that element that is both seen and unseen. They don't want to be part of the show. And I remember I was there at Comerica Park that night. Jim Joyce, Galarraga. I was there, and I was in the umpires' room. They had a handful of reporters that were in there afterward. I was one of 3 people there, and I have never seen, Rich, after a sporting event, you give me any losing coach, manager, player of all the games I've ever covered, I never saw a man as shattered as Jim Joyce in that moment. He was devastated to have had that happen and feel responsible. I could hear, when he watched the replay for the first time, I could hear his screams through the walls. He was that pained by it. And so the umpires, Rich, they care.
It's
wonderful.
And
it's part of their ethos, though, to want to not be the story.
Look, I am all for understanding that umpires are people, too. We just saw, the name escapes me, the umpire who saved a woman's life in Pittsburgh.
Right, yes, John Tumpain.
Okay. I'm all for that. And I'm all for the umpires to say they don't want to be part of it. Because we don't go. I think that's what you said the other day, Brockman, when we saw Jerry Davis run Beltre, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like we didn't pay money to see him.
Beltre, by the way, going for 3,000 hits.
Exactly.
He's a bigger part of the show than anything.
And a future Hall of Famer.
Exactly.
So I'm all for that. But just mic him up. Let him go ahead and do this.
Fair point.
And let's figure this thing out. So Monday happens. Darvish will be somewhere else by then?
I think Darvish has a good chance of being a Dodger by then. Sonny Gray will be somewhere else, whether it's, again, the Dodgers have been somewhat involved on him as well, but the Yankees, big time there on Sonny Gray. And the Astros have to get somebody. The Astros, Rich, they are an ultimate win-now team as well. Dallas Keuchel goes tonight. He's missed almost 2 months with a neck issue. Let's see how he looks tonight in Detroit. That could really have a big bearing on how aggressively the Astros look for pitching.
And who's the American League MVP, do you think? We've been going back and forth about this. You know, Altuve is a revelation, hitting over 500 this month. He's got hitting over 500 in an 18-game hitting streak that's going on right now. Aaron Judge, as we all know, has a lot of home runs. He has fallen off since the All-Star break a bit. Is it Chris Sale who's going nuts right now for the Red Sox?
My vote, if I had to vote today,
yes, sir,
I'd vote for Altuve. Because I believe you look at the middle of the diamond, Rich, I will always prioritize elite defenders, especially at premium positions like second base. Altuve, remarkable player, has the most hits in baseball. I believe 60 more hits than the next closest guy since the day he debuted in the major leagues back in 2011. He's that good. He makes them go. He is the catalyst, the heart and soul of the best team in the American League. And does Judge bring more power? Of course he does. But I look at where Altuve plays, all the double plays he turns.
Right.
He, to me, is the most essential player in the American League right now.
I think you've got to look at the team that has the best record in each league first for your MVP, and he's that guy for them.
I've always viewed it that way. I voted Betts over Trout last year for exactly that reason.
Jon Morosi, I'm glad that you stopped by here when you were out here in Los Angeles. Come back anytime.
My pleasure. Ann Arbor sends its regards, Rich.
Please send
miss you there.
Send my regards back, please. Send my regards back.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on radio stations across the country and audience.
Isn't it amazing you can download an app with your